Is self-storage overbuilding? Is that catastrophic? Let's take a look at that right now. My name's Mark Helm, and I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Quick Start Academy. And what I do is I support the small investor who wants to get in the self-storage business or who wants to grow their self-storage business, strategically do so in a way that creates true wealth in a fulfilling career. And we hear a lot about it, and it's on my mind every day: oversupply of self-storage. Well, the question is it catastrophic? Is it fatal? Well, the answer is, as in most things in life, it depends. Depends on what? It depends on what market you're in. More importantly, it depends on your submarket. But most importantly, in my opinion, is it depends on where you are in the ownership cycle of your self-storage facility. Let's take a look. Let me share with you the tale of two facilities. Remember, oversupply is a normal part of the real estate cycle. I may have naively thought that it was possible to postpone or even avoid that part of the cycle, but appears not. But let's look at the tale of two facilities. Let me share with you facility one. Facility one was a conversion we did, and during the lease up, we leased up faster than the performa said, not over the top. I think the performa had 1,200 square feet per month, and we leased up at about 1,435 average, phased it in, and we got to stabilized occupancy. And then as the market started ripping and roaring back in 2015 or such, we were over 90%, 95%, kind of hung out around that 95% occupancy for quite a while. Then a lot of product began to hit our city. And specifically in that submarket, a new product came online, a new facility, multi-story facility. It wasn't owned by a REIT, but it was managed by a REIT. My experience is REIT third-party management, it's not their money, but they will cut rates unbelievably to get a breathing person in there. Their rates were literally 50% of what we were charging for our facility. And then there would be a month or two free on top of that. Thank goodness they weren't managing mine, but that's how they approached that particular owner's property. And what we began to notice was that our move-out rates stayed the same. You'll begin to notice when you hit a stabilized piece of property, you'll have a certain number of move-ins, certain number of move-outs per month. On average, they tend to balance each other. Certain times of the year, the move-outs are higher and the move-ins are higher. But what we noticed was the move-outs stayed the same, but the move-ins began to slow and really slow down. And we had to make a decision. Our decision was, how are we going to address this? Were we going to try to match their prices? Were we going to try to cut our rates? And we made the decision that the integrity of our cash flow was more important than our occupancy rate. I wanted to have a good income producing per square foot facility, and if our occupancy rate suffered, so be it. Well, that was our decision that we made. We did tell the manager that they could have up to a month's rent incentive and could go up to 10% on a discount, but we're in no way going to try to match what the competitors doing there. And what happened was, at the high, our occupancy rate was around 95%, and at the low, after the new competitor moved in, our lowest point was around 83.5%. And that's quite a gap to cover in the occupancy, and we didn't know if we had made the right decision or not. But the thing was, we were profitable. We weren't as profitable, but we were profitable. And now we are stabilized out at 85 to 87%, just about like what our pro forma said. Our income's higher than our pro forma said, so we're outperforming it somewhat, but the project worked. And we held on to the income per square foot was more important to us than the occupancy rate. Now that was largely a function of where we were in the life cycle of ownership and lease up, but that's what we did with Facility 1. Facility 2, same city, different submarket, but that was a ground up project. And from the time we got the initial feasibility report to the time that we started renting our first unit was slightly over a year and a half. And a lot changed in that submarket over a year and a half. A lot of product hit our city in general, but in that particular submarket, a lot of expansion took place and two new facilities came online. We knew about the two new facilities and we all kind of opened at the same time. But the expansions were talked about in the feasibility report, but literally anyone that could have expanded in that submarket did. And so by the time we started renting, or very shortly after we started renting, it was a very different submarket than when we initially got our feasibility report. We had first few months of lease up are great, and then bam, we hit a wall and it really slowed down. And to compound the problem, we knew that the income per household was lower in that submarket than most of the others, but it looked high enough to perform very well. But what we noticed was that we did have a lot of move-ins, but the move-outs were much higher than any other project we've ever been involved in during a lease-up. So it moved very slowly, and we quickly went through our interest reserve. Then we did another cash infusion, and then we even went through that. And we were still not at break even. And in that particular project, we would cut prices 50%. If somebody was breathing and there was breath on a mirror, and we would do whatever it took to get them to move in. The only challenge is, very often when any special we offered ran out, so did the customer. They ran out too. So we still haven't hit break even on that project. Very different type conversations with your partners from Facility 1 to Facility 2. Same phenomena going on, two totally different types of conversations, and one's getting checks and the other isn't. The only difference was where we were in the lease-up cycle of that particular project. So is it catastrophic? Well, for Facility 1, no. Facility 2, very challenging. We've got a couple directions we're focused on right now, that a couple of pivots we're doing where we very well may just take our partners out, either put them in another project or liquidate a project and buy them out, and then we can do what we need to do on that project, like add more parking or even sell it. But very different type dynamics. Only real difference, there's a few others, but the main difference was where we were in the lease-up cycle. So, is oversupply catastrophic? Well, it can be if you're going into a lease-up situation and it's very slow. If you're through your lease up and you're either moving towards break even or a little bit past break even, it will have an impact, but it won't be catastrophic. So with all that being said, what's critical is to know the dynamics of that submarket if you're bringing any new space on. If anyone has the ability to expand in your submarket, assume they will. And your goal is to get to break even as quick as possible. We've had more success with keeping a higher per square foot income and having the occupancy rate maybe go up a little less than we have having good occupancy, but having the per square foot income be much lower than the pro forma. That's just our experience. Look, every submarket that's overbuilt will eventually absorb up. Just know that. Now, facility one, when that's ripping and roaring again, we're probably going to own it. But if we don't own it, the only reason is because we've taken a good profit and left. Facility two, when that market gets past overbuilt and then moves into undersupply and growth, we may or may not be owning that property. But I promise you, that facility at some point is going to be performing extremely well. Oversupply is a natural part of the real estate cycle. So design your business strategy to what will you do if the lease up of the space you're bringing on slows down. How will you handle that? Do you have enough cash to handle your holding costs? If so, for how long? Look, population growth and the percentage of the population using self-storage is going to increase in almost every submarket. That will solve all the problems that you may be experiencing right now. Do you have the wherewithal to hang in there until that happens? If you're experiencing lease up in an oversupplied market, keep your eyes closely on the dynamics and supply demand of the submarket where you own them. Phase in as much as possible. And remember, your contractors are going to advise against phasing in because it's, quote, more expensive. Your suppliers aren't going to like you to phase in as much because they say it might be more expensive. But remember, they're not the ones servicing the debt. You are. Keep this in mind as you grow or get in the self-storage business, and you'll be in the self-storage business for a long time. Self-storage, the best business there is, bar none. So thank you very much. I look forward to being with you again next week. My name's Mark Helm, and I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Storage World Analyzer. That is a cloud-based financial analysis tool specifically designed for the self-storage industry. That's what we use to run the different scenarios on the lease-up and how much capital is going to be required. If you're not using it, just using Excel, I invite you to look at using the Storage World Analyzer. We use both, but we love the analyzer. We don't end up making the mistakes that you can tend to make on an Excel spreadsheet where there's lots of numbers interacting with each other. So explore it. Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage.com. Hit the Storage World Analyzer tab or StorageWorldAnalyzer.com. Thank you very much. I look forward to being with you again next week, and I'll see you then.